Welcome to this Aztlander presentation by Dr. Nicholas Hellmuth, titled Classic Maya Enema Ritual Iconography. Enjoy!
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be going through a lot of new material, and these are some of the subjects. So it's a mysterious world, so I can't answer every question, but I'm going to show you what's in the enema ritual, and then we're going to see all kinds of stuff. We've got the large jugs and the small jugs. That's a spelling mistake there. That should be, and then we're going to enema syringes, bibs, sniffing stuff, lipstick cups, other cups, jaguars, and females. So we're going to go through a lot of topics. Now, none of this was known until Peter Furst and Michael Coe came out in 1977. And a good example of how much we did not know is in the Grolier Club book. The Grolier Club was the first time that Maya iconography really came out. Prior to that, it was architecture, sherds, ceramic sequence, all kinds of other stuff. And then Michael Coe, the other people did it, Spinden and Kubler and Franz Blom, but really the person that put iconography into the world of the Maya studies was Michael Coe. And here's the scene of 31 gods. And, can you see an enema going on in there? You see? So in 1973, when this was published, none of us knew this was an enema ritual because we didn't see what was in this. We didn't. Now, when we, now we find out that person number 22 is carrying an enema syringe. But see, we didn't know what an enema syringe was until Coe found it, sticking into the tail end of people on this vase here, because here they have it sticking right in there. So in 1973, none of us knew what this was. Then, of course, in 77, now we knew what this was, but you have to be careful. At the top left, that's not an enema syringe he's got in his hand. At the bottom right, that is an enema syringe. So you have to be very, very careful of calling everything a syringe or a clyster, whatever you want to call it, because the one at the top is a conch shell. It's an ink pot, and that's his painting thing. Whereas the one at the bottom, of course, he's holding it with his claws. That's the gourd, and that has the tube sticking out the end. That is what you stick in your tail end. Okay. Now, once you know what each aspect looks like, it's a lot easier to spot an enema ritual. Now, what I mean by enema ritual is before you get inserted, during the insertion, and afterwards. So an enema ritual doesn't just mean stick it in and that's it. No, these ceremonies took hours and had dozens, 20, 30 or more people involved, held inside the palaces or held out in the courtyards or whatever. Now, this is a vase in the Museo Popol Vuh, Universidad Francisco Marroquin, and there's the syringe in his left hand, and there's the jug turned over on the side. Now, we're going to go through all this stuff. We're going to have a chapter on the syringes, a chapter on the jugs. Now here, for example, it's not as easy to see what's going on because this is an original scene. It's not repainted in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. This is original. This was painted over 1,000 years ago. And there's the jug. And on top of the jug is a syringe with a tube sticking out. Now, keep in mind that the syringes today, that they still use today, two people on my staff, individual different people, went to different villages in different parts of Guatemala, and they're still using enema syringes. No drugs, no alcohol. And the syringes used today, which we'll show later, don't have a tube sticking out. They don't need that. The ancient Maya, the classic Maya, normally had a tube stuck in the gourd. But you see here, unless you know what the syringe is, unless you know what the jug is, it may not be as easy to see, but we're going to learn about all that. So let's start off with enema jugs. Now these jugs come in every, some can hold a couple of liters, gallon. Some are huge. The one in the, shall we say, the carved vase on the left, that's a pretty large jug. And by the way, those ropes tied around it, that's the way they carried that to the scene. Now on the right, that Codex style vase, also in the Museo Popol Vuh, that's a much smaller one. You can tell compared with the guy sitting on his legs behind it to the right, that's not as big, but the size varies hugely. Now we're going to see an even smaller one, and those are very different, okay? Same shape. So the shape is what's important, not how tall they are or how wide they are. And we're going to talk about what's sticking out the top, and notice the hand hieroglyph. So that's a relatively common hieroglyph. We're going to see that more and more. So here we are again. This is the same scene in color at the left and in black and white at the right. It really helps to use software to see the thing better. And if you are better at software than I am, because I'm not a specialist in software, it's a lot easier to see. For example, you have the enema jug, you have the clenched hand, which is the most common hieroglyph, not the only one, but is the one most common on the these things. And then you have a tray or a bowl of other stuff next to it. I mean, there's a lot going on to those scenes, and that's why there's a lot more to do studies of. Now, 95% of these enema scenes are on vases, bowls, and a few plates. Occasionally you get sculpture. I think Carl Talby and a Mexican archaeologist published this. And this sculpture is in Mexico City. I saw it a couple of weeks ago when I was in the Museo Nacional. So if you go to Mexico City, you can see this. And on his back, he's carrying enema jug, relatively small. And he has the very clear, the syringe on top of it. And he also has the hand hieroglyph, which is the most common thing. Now here we have a black and white thing. Here there's no syringe, no bib, no women, no jaguar or deer, but you can still, I still classify it as enema because the guy on the throne is sniffing something. We're going to see that's a very important aspect. Now that doesn't mean that every time you sniff there's an enema scene, but most of the sniffing scenes, not all, but most, are where there's an enema jug nearby. And notice the two jugs, the one up on the steps and the one at the bottom. One holds many gallons, many liters, and the other one's not quite as big. So there are many phases in this ceremony. You know, it's not just you stick it in. There's a lot that goes on before the actual insertion. Now here again is a close-up, one of my photographs. The jug alone is 4.3 megabytes, and my photograph of the vase is 48 megabytes. And what I'm trying to point out is that a database on the internet, it's hard, it's expensive. With Paul, we're going to try to figure out how to make some of our photographs available, keeping in mind that when I photograph something with a 4x5 or an 8x10 camera, that one photograph is over a gigabyte, one photograph, a gigabyte. So, you know, making that, we want to make these available, but it's not going to be easy because of the file size, because our photographs are that quality. And in this photograph, you can see the thing sticking out the top. Also notice that I'm assuming it's a 13 Ahau. I'm not an epigrapher. Notice that this glyph is different. Notice also that under the jug, there's something that makes it not fall over. Why they made all these jugs round? You see, that's important. All the enema jugs are round at the base. Why? Why can't they make it flat? Is there a reason? Is it something to do with the ingredients or stirring it? This is a question for other people to ask and to answer. Now, this is the jug from the Museo Popol Vuh. And what I've done is I've turned it around so it's kind of straight up. And notice again, this is smaller than the big ones on the throne. Now, keep in mind, there is a handheld jug that we don't call an enema jug, but this is a handheld jug that is an enema jug because he has the enema syringe in the other hand. So you have to be very careful in your nomenclature of how to, how to name all this stuff. Now, this particular scene, we're going to see there are about 5, 6, or 7 of these vases where normally an elderly man is being dressed or undressed by a younger woman. And notice that there is the jug in front of him. Notice the fuming, that's the odor or the foam. Again, there's a huge amount for people like Peter De Smet and other ethnopharmacologists, ethnobotanists need to study this. But unless all the vases are known to them, what they study will just be a couple of scenes. So what I'm trying to do is make an inventory of every single rollout of Justin Kerr that are very helpful, and every photograph that I've taken. And then bit by bit, when this archive of enemas is available, then students can do master's thesis and a PhD dissertation, and other scholars can study the glyphs. Now here at the top, this is an authentic scene. The scene at the bottom looks kind of repainted. We're going to see more details of that. At the top, what the guy has in the bowl in his hands, each in the hands, who knows what they are? Sometimes they're called tamales, usually when they're smaller. He's a little bit larger. But whatever he's got in that bowl, that's what's sticking out of the enema jug. So what is this? Is it a part of a tree? Is it part of a plant? Is it a leaf? Is it manufactured, to put things together? And then you have the fumes bubbling out the sides. So there's a lot we have to study. And look at the lower vase where it's very restricted neck and there's a different kind of bubble coming out. Let's move forward. Okay, so here's a close-up. So what's in the serving dish, whatever it is, seems to be identical to what's sticking out from the enema jug. By the way, the holes, when you have a hole drilled in a pot, that means it broke thousands of years ago, and they had to sew it together with a piece of thread. It's relatively common when these things break that they're so important, they sew them back together. It's absolutely incredible. It's not that they don't just make them using a ceremony and throw it in a midden. They're actually stitching this bowl together. So here's another scene. This is a codex scene. Now notice this has a painting on it, but it's not a hieroglyph. Look at the 4 yummy, tasty, whatever it is, spewing out. I mean, whatever is in there is so incredible. It's just bubbling out. And, no wonder they love to take it up the tailpipe. And notice at the bottom has the fluffy material to keep the bowl from falling over, but notice it's still falling over. Now, what that fluff is and why it's still attached to the ceramic bowl, I'm guessing, I'm calling it fluff. I don't think it's, I think it's something they glued on there, but again, a ceramic expert, an archaeologist might be able to figure out what is that material on the bottom. Now, most enema scenes are on vases or bowls, but there are some plates. And this enema scene is actually taking place on the edge around. The thing in the center is another part of the ceremony. And the injection and all that. Now, the guy at the top is holding, those are probably actually rattles. You have to be very careful. Just because you got something round with a tube on it, a lot of those are rattles, they're not enema syringes. But there is a jug there, and here it is on the left. So there are the kind of the fumes coming out. and there's the hieroglyph. And again, we need epigraphers like Carl Calloway to make a list of every single hieroglyph and to try to understand what's going on, then to make a list of what's in the enema. And I would prefer to have linguists, tell us from the vocabularies of the, 16th, 17th century, what might have been in an enema, if there's enough, if Bowles can tell us this for the Yucatec language, and other linguists can tell us that, because again, they're still taking enemas today. Still today in Guatemala. We found that out when Sinaida went up and Norma went up. Each one went up to near their villages, and the enema syringe is still being used, but no drugs, no alcohol. Now on the right, you see the plate, no hieroglyph on that, but that's a lot of liquid. Of course, it's not just one guy taking it, it's a whole bunch of people probably. And whatever, what are those things sticking out? And then at the edge, you get the volute sticking out. So again, there's a huge, huge amount. Now this plate, photographed by Justin Kerr, this is one of the most important polychrome plates in the Maya world that we know of that shows an enema. I know about 3 to 5 plates, several that I've photographed, but this by Justin Kerr is absolutely amazing. First of all, the enema jug that I show in 2 positions, that big enema jug, that's a huge, that's a lot of liquid. It's bigger than almost the guy sitting next to it. And then there's the guy sticking it up his tailpipe. And then there are 2 people, notice a lot of them are painted black and all that kind of stuff. And there's another enema jug that's not quite as tall. So, there are a lot of people in these things. It's not just one guy sitting in his palace. A lot of these were literal orgies. We all know about the Romans, and we all know about the Aztecs. Well, the Maya were people too, and they were civilized. So, when most of us, we went to college, drinking parties, fraternities, all that kind of stuff. So, the Maya are not unique on this aspect. So here again, now I joke about this. If you sniff, we're going to see the bouquets that they're sniffing, and I'm making a joke here. If you sniff the bouquets and sniff the enema odor, is this what happens to your nose? Well, you see, this guy's nose has a definite problem. But again, we need to go to a medical specialist and find, is this a disease, or what's causing his nose to look like this? So there's a huge, huge amount of additional work. Now here's a large animal coming out of the jug. I mean, I don't think they're putting animals in. This is the only jug I know of that has an animal. I mean, did the animal get attracted in it and jump in and take a sip? But you have to see all these to understand, how much is going on. Now here again, this is one of these scenes. They're about 5 to 8 scenes, very similar in style. And they show normally an elderly man, although sometimes it's a younger guy. And the woman is not as old as the old guy. And she seems to be, we're assuming she's undressing him. And notice that the jug, each one has different sort of hieroglyphs. The one on the left has kind of the grapes, which are often a cloud. I'm not an epigrapher, so I hope an epigrapher can tell me what's going on there. And the other jug has symbols, kind of hard to read. Notice the enema syringe, since this is 99% certain, most of these are gourds, it does have that wiggly end on it. But notice the one on the left doesn't have a tube sticking out. Now you can tell these are the enema syringes by that black hole in the middle, and that's to press down. In order to get that up your tailpipe, you have to stick your fingers in there, not press the liquid down, but you have some sort of a bladder in there, and your fingers press the surface of that, and that squishes the stuff out. But the question remains is, how can those sit on top of the jug? Did the jug have a lid? I mean, there's a lot of stuff we got to learn. Now, this is a scene that taught us everything. This is the one, and I think it's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. It's published by Furst and Co. in 1977. And there's one guy sticking it up his tailpipe. And then there's another guy on the top right that has the syringe tucked in his belt. And then another guy on the lower left has a woman sticking in. Just a couple of comments. Do they have a hole in the back of their pants? I mean, what are they sticking? I mean, do they part it? I mean, there are all kinds of things. I don't take enemas. I mean, I went to Harvard in the 60s, but I was so content. I was so happy studying the Maya, you know, with the help of Gordon Willey and all the capable people at Harvard in those years. You know, I didn't need drugs to get happy, and I didn't want to have, I wanted to do my research. But the question is, you know, where are they sticking it in? Is there a special zipper? Is there an enema outfit that has a little slit? There's a lot we have to learn about. Okay, so again, we've talked about the stuff sticking out the top. We got to know what that is. And, you know, most people say, well, in the jug, there's pulque, there's a pulque hieroglyph sometimes on it. And there's the balche, you know, the lock and don't drink out of the canoes. Those are the two ingredients. But I think we need to go a lot further than that. I think there's a lot of other plants, and we need to figure out what is that row of 8 objects sticking out. And then on top of it, there are 2 more objects. What are those? And above it, there's the hand of the jaguar, and the other things are hieroglyphs. But, you know, there's a lot we need to learn here. So here, notice the cup. So you've got the jug, you've got the hieroglyph on the jug. Not all of the jugs have hieroglyphs, but this one definitely does. Then you have those things sticking out the top. We're assuming those are ingredients. We assume they're soaking, so the chemicals go, you know, but that's an assumption, it's not a statement of fact. And then notice that on the picture on the right, each person has a cup in his hand. So drinking, or is he going to pour some extra ingredient in there? Again, there's a lot more that we need to study here. He's got obviously a gourd. It's got the little stub. Sometimes they pull the stub off, so the stub's kind of shortened. And there's the tube. Normally, the tube is affixed. It's an added tube. Today, they don't need a tube because the gourd itself has a tube. And then you have the pot in front with the foam in red. I mean, again, something's in there that's pretty incredible. And I estimate it's a little bit more than just balche or pulque, because, you know, I mean, they had that available, shall we say, no matter what. And here we are again. We've seen these before. These are close-ups. Now this scene is total. I'm estimating it's totally repainted. But you see the 3 jugs in the middle. Notice they have very tight, very, very tight things. And then they have the stuff, the, shall we say, ingredients. These are not the foam coming out. The things they have in their hand, the guy on the throne and the guy to the right, I think that's repainted. I think the authentic one is the one on the far left, and that's kind of like the bouquet. So again, there's a lot going, and of course, the guy on the throne is looking into a mirror. That's well known. So there's a lot going on in these events. Now here, it really helps. You know, people are going to freak out. Oh, you can't use Photoshop. No, you're not ruining the picture. You're trying to see what's there. And in order to see what's there, you need to put it into Photoshop or Capture One or other software, and to try to see the detail that's painted there. And that will also help you sometimes see what's been faked and not. So here you see, with just 5 seconds of Photoshop, because I'm not an expert in this, you see either the dog or whatever it is, he's got a probable kind of wilted syringe sticking out front. And notice the enema jug is tipped over. And notice it also has that base, okay? And I'm pretty sure in this case, the base doesn't look like it's glued to the vase. So why is he tipping it over? Because he's probably drunk as a skunk and he's leaning on the thing and, you know, because the guy above him is looking down. Hey, what's going on with this guy? So a lot. Now let's, again, here is a monkey with a mechapal carrying a jug with a jaguar above it. There's another monkey on the same vase with his mechapal. Now notice his enema jug has all kinds of stuff bubbling out. And then on the right side, same vase, is another enema jug that has 2 layers of stuff sticking out. What are these plants? We really need to learn. We need an ethnobotanist to learn. Are these leaves? You know, I don't think they're flowers. Are these cores of a plant, you know, that have lots of chemicals inside the center of the plant or the tree? You know, what's going on? And again, for epigraphers, here you have same vase. You have 3 different, not really hieroglyphs, but you have different definite symbols that are very similar to each other. And all that needs to be studied. Here's again close-ups of the same thing. You see that, again, these 2 vases have lots of stuff bubbling out, bubbling out, bubbling out. Now that's a rollout. Those pictures you just saw were my own photographs. Here's Justin Kerr's helpful rollout. And then below, you have a codex style, and you see a gigantic enema jug a little bit to the left, and that jug is taller than all the seated people. So that's a lot of liquid. And notice it has the rope on it because you got to carry these things. And then notice the person at the left has a small jug in front of him. He's falling over. Probably the guy behind him is going to stick the enema in. And he looks pretty drunk. So again, and then there seem to be some women in the scene as well. So a lot, by the way, the women are never shown taking the drug themselves. They're shown as assistants. Okay, now bouquet of flowers. I call them flowers because that's what they're called in all, you know, in all the discussions. And we assume whether they are flowers or leaves or segments of a fruit, we don't know. Or whether they're a prepared material that add lots of ingredients and then chemically make them even more powerful. That all has to be studied. But in the meantime, they're called flower bouquets. And he does have it in front of his face. And I would say not all of them. The one at the right is simply holding it to offer it to somebody. But usually they have it, you know, I think they're sniffing it. And then in front, he has the enema jug. Again, notice that we've seen this jug before. It has a 13 how. It has the fluffy base to it and has all the stuff sticking out. So again, there's a lot more to an enema ritual, to an enema scene than just the insertion. There's the before and after, and the sniffing of the bouquet is part of the before. So here again, on the left, this is a different vase. Notice he's got it right smack up to his nose. So I don't think he's just looking at it. I think he's sniffing it. But again, that has to be studied. We need linguists to look up sniffing. We need ethnobotanists to look it up. We need ethnographers to find out what other peoples today in Mesoamerica or in Lower Central America or in South America do the same thing, because the Maya are not going to be the only people that are doing this. Now notice at the right, that's one of these scenes that has the old guy with a younger woman helping him. That object he has in his hand is very different than the bouquet. We have no idea what that object is. And here's, again, there are about 5, 6, 7 of these different scenes. And notice that at the left, that object in the hand is going down, And in the scene at the right, he's holding it up. And it's totally different than the bouquet of flowers. So we don't know what that is. And notice at the left, it's almost as though he wants it to go down in those fumes coming up. But that's just an estimate, just a guess. Now notice again at the left and at the right, there are fumes coming out this. But notice at the left, those fumes are over a foot high. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. By the way, I'm drinking green tea. I'm not drinking enema juice.
You're gross.
Okie dokie. So again, here's a close-up of that. You know, what in the world, you know, again, does pulque do this? Does balche do this?
No.
Exactly. You see, you know, you've got the Lacandon use balche, and lots of people use pulque. So again, this is more than just me. We need to cooperate and coordinate and learn from many, many different scholars and kind of come together, and maybe at a future symposium have a session on enemas, and someone do the epigraphy, someone do the chemicals. You know, there's a lot, and then we have better documentation. So here again, this is one of those whole scenes. This is one of my rollouts. Our rollouts are digital. I did these in the 1980s and early 2000s. Unfortunately, that camera required the software and connectors that we're throwing away the camera. The camera's in front of me. There's no way to make it work anymore because you can't connect it. There's no computer that can manage that trilinear scanner anymore. Now here you notice that the bibs we're going to talk about, the guy in the middle has a bib in his hand. The guy at the left has his bib or necklace in his hand. But there's also these bibs or necklaces are hanging from the back of the women. So again, it's more than just wearing them around the neck. Again, there's a lot more to be studied. Here again, sniff, sniff, sniff. And again, notice what he's carrying. What the guy is carrying at the far right, that is the same container and the same contents that were in another scene I showed at the beginning. We have no idea, but here it's in two different enema scenes because of the enema jugs here. So it's clearly related, but see, it's never been listed as part of the enema scene. So there's a huge amount to go. And notice that in this scene, these things they're sniffing are pretty large and a lot going on. Now notice here the enema jugs, they're not bubbling out and there's nothing sticking out the top. So there are a lot of different types of scenes. Okay, now this scene, by the way, is totally authentic, not been repainted. And we have to understand that for an archaeologist, for an iconographer, the original eroded vase is 1,000 times more important than a repainted vase. Okay, because here we know that everything in this scene is true. And he's got that bouquet of flowers, and I'm estimating that the other guy in front of him has the enema jug, and there's stuff sticking out the top. So you see here, if this rollout were at a higher resolution, this is not my rollout, then we could begin to study. You could zoom in on the flowers. You could zoom into the top of the vase. So that's very, very important. In other words, research on enemas is just beginning, even though it's been going on since 1977. And I published about a month ago, I sent out to our mailing list, these are posted on our website, what I did in immediately after I found out from Furst and Co., I found about 30 more enema scenes that they were not aware of. And I published my stuff. And then in 84, 85, 86, with Peter De Smet, we updated all that. But yet today, there's 1,000 times more information than we had available in those past years. Now here's another scene. He's got the sniffing thing right in front of his mouth and nose. He's got the mirror in front of him. I'm not sure I would call those bundles down below enema jugs whatsoever. Notice the women in waiting, but again, there are two people with the sniff thing in front of the nose, the ruler and the front guy of the four men in the back. So this sniffing aspect, even though there's no enema jug here, I still think that that is a part of the ritual. Okay, let's go to another chapter now, and let's look at the small jugs. They usually have an akab or akbal, depending what language you talk about. They have that symbol. At the left, it's right side up. At the right, it's upside down. These are carried in backpacks, or they're carried hanging from the necklace, or sometimes they're carried as a strap bag. So these are small jugs. They are the same shape as an enema jug. They have stuff bubbling out of them, but it is best not to call them an enema jug. They should be handled separately. So here in the middle, you have, notice the human sacrifice. You have the Shibalba, devil, demon, deity, and he has it hanging from his necklace. That's that jug. Okay, so it's a miniature jug, but it is not yet documented as just an it's enema associated, but not quite enough to call this scene. These marching scenes, these parade scenes are the why the animal spirit companions. But now we have to understand that's a great epigraphic and ethno-historical and ethnographic discussion. Animal spirit companion, very helpful by the scholars that did that. But now we have to realize there's more going on in these parade scenes, a lot. And there are a lot of these scenes. And see, again, there's that jug. Now it's upside down, carried on his neck. And now the same stuff boiling out of enema jugs is coming out of this. And this jug's a little bit bigger than most of them. And scene after scene after scene, there it is again. The deer guy, there's the akab or akbal, and the stuff pouring out. There are also some symbols, 4 symbols around it. Notice the Shibalba, death deity, demon, devil at the back. So these parade scenes originally, back in the 1970s, 1980s, I called these the dance after decapitation sacrifice, after suicidal sacrifice, because that's where I first saw them. And then they were identified as way, and all other aspects were ignored. Now I think we need to go back to them and find out what's really going on. I mean, yes, they may be honored companions, but there's more going on. So here it is again. Scene after, most of these are Tepe 1. About 80% of them have this red background painted by the same atelier in the same regions of the Peten. And there's that jug upside down hanging off his necklace. So you have to understand what kind of a necklace is this to be stiff enough to have that hanging off. The guy in the middle, the deer, that's not a jug hanging off. That's something something separate. So here's another scene, and the individual at the back is holding the same jug with a handle. So again, this jug is in scene after scene after scene. They're usually deer, often with monkey tails. If it's a monkey, he'll have a deer antler and a deer ear normally. And you have the Shibalba, devil, demon, deity in the same scene. And notice they're dancing, so it's not just a parade. So this raises the question, or is this a pre-enema ceremony? Another reason I say that, there you have the gentleman up front. Is this a prime? I'm not there. Identifying deities is not easy. I would take a guess that headdress of his is sort of hinting at A prime, but I would accept if someone says that needs to be changed. Notice the red scarves. These scarves are very important. And notice that he's carrying that with a strap. Okay. And then the monkey, we assume that it's a cacao pod. Notice the word assume, but 99% identify that as a cacao. I've been working enough in the jungles of Guatemala over the last 50 years. I have a list of lots of things that monkeys carry that are the same shape. We grow them in our garden. We have a Maya ethnobotanical research garden surrounding my office, and these things grow in my office. We have cacao, giving cacao pods at 1,500 meters. And we have lots of other plants growing. We're not sniffing them, injecting them up our tail end or anything like smoking them. We're studying them. And I learn iconography by being in the jungle. I learn iconography. Yes, I have a library. You know, I have altogether about 14,000 books, and that we've loaned them out to other places because I don't want to hog them all. So they're out in other places and students can get them. But my library is the jungle. So I learn about the plants and the animals in addition to using books and everything else. Now here's another example. Here it is upside down. So this is a fragmented vase, and you can see that he's kind of holding it deliberately upside down, and those, you know, there's something in there very similar to the enema liquid. It's the same type of volute coming out. And notice those, they're usually called disembodied eyes, but I'd rather have some other suggestions as to what's really going on here. So again, this small little container, here it is. There are two of them here, you see, they're carried by a strap bag. And the one at the left is easy to see. It has the Ak-Ab or Akbal symbol on it. And notice the guy stabbing himself in the neck. And that's why I call this the dance after decapitation. That there are a lot of these scenes of A prime or other people killing themselves. And there's a jaguar in flames. A lot of this started with the Castillo bowl in the Museo Popol Vuh. I had access to that before the museum was open because I had access to the Castillo collection way decades back. And I said, look, please make all this stuff available in the museum, and gradually the Museo Popol Vuh was initiated. But let's get on, let's jump over just a second. Let's jump over to these insects. So the guy at the left has giant insects. The guy in the middle is holding giant insects. And the guy at the right is holding insects. Now I'm going to try to be polite, but everybody says, you know, that's a this, that's a that, that's a that. Sorry, folks, doesn't work like that. You got to live out in the rainforest. You have to live in these ecosystems. You have to be having dinner and having these insects fly into your head. All of us, usually we're about 8 to 10 people when we go out on a field trip. We were camping out in the middle of nowhere in Cerro San Gil, up on a mountain overlooking the Rio Dulce, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, no hotel, no town, no village, no nothing. We had to climb up a hill carrying all of our supplies. And we're sitting there having dinner, of course, in our campground. There's no wall in our dining room. And these insects are flying in like helicopters, like large drones. And so again, that's my way of trying to understand. And again, this is the vase, very helpful scene from Justin Kerr, showing these insects. Now it's not easy to identify. Here's another vase. Notice these insects, see, they may not all be the same. So here you see the body of the insect, and that body does have sort of some bee aspects to it. And it's assumed that the reason that they're there is because they're attracted to the honey inside that Akbal jug. Now notice something else. That Akbal jug is large enough to be an enema jug. So again, I don't call the strap jugs enema jugs, but I think they're related. I think they're used for different ceremonies to carry that liquid just to have it available. And, you know, these insects could be flies, excuse me, bees. See, here are other insects. Now, in this case, these are totally different. These are not the same. This guy's dying. He's probably putrefied, probably stinks to hell. And these insects are attracted to that smell. And then we have this wonderful scene from Justin Kerr. I'm pretty sure this is totally authentic. Now here, you have the black symbol at the top, meaning he has a black spot on his head, and you have black wings. So in this case, this is not a bee. Sorry, guys, it's not a bee. I don't think it's a bee. And there's a giant cave cockroach. It's not, you know, a meter by a meter, but we need to be careful when we identify these things. See, here are all kinds of insects. So there's a bee on the lower left. The insect that I think it is the one on the right and middle, lower middle. So the bees have that body. You see those stripes on them. But this is what I think it is. So these are our photographs. Sorry, my throat's getting a bit dry. I gotta. So these are our photographs. And notice the dark spot, and notice the kind of golden wings. That's what you have here. So I'm estimating that this insect is probably this insect. And these are the night helicopters. Again, getting back to this, not every scene has the same. This may be a different insect. And there may be lightning bugs. There are lightning bugs that have the dark thing. Just real quick, this snake wrapped, see the snake wrapping around the jaguar, and notice the kind of celestial Venus symbols all over it. Just want a detour. A lot of those are not enema scenes, though. That's there, okay. Okay, let's go to the scene that taught me all this. Jaguars are very common in enema rituals. At the left, you have the jaguar that I showed at the beginning that has the syringe in one hand and the jug in the other. There's another jaguar in front of him. At the back, back there's another jaguar. So again, jaguars, jaguars, jaguars. Here's a guy vomiting. Very common in enema scenes. There's a jaguar. Notice at the left, you have a human face inside the jaguar outfit. These are not necessarily real live jaguars. When I give my jaguar lecture, you'll see that Maya did have trained pets in their palaces, but I think that most of these are people dressed up. So here you have at the left, you have a bleeding human head over the enema jug, and you have, notice all the giant insects. So these are insects that want that death material, okay? I don't think these are bees. And there's the enema jug in front of him. Then you have a jaguar with another enema jug in front of him. He's holding something. A lot of people are holding stuff. So lots and lots of jaguars. And at the far right, there's an enema syringe over the enema jug. So here's the whole scene we saw before. So again, there are a lot of animals in here, and here's some kind of eroded vases. I really appreciate the Fundación La Ruta Maya and the Museo Popol Vuh both gave me access to study their material. It really, really helps. You see that it's eroded, but it's authentic. So you have the enema jug at the left, and we got to study what's the scene painted on it. And you see the jaguar there. So again, we need epigraphers, you know, because it's not always a glyph. Sometimes it's decoration. Again, here more jaguars. And the jaguar on the right has a large syringe in front of him. Here's some more jaguars, have all the claws. Let's get down to the syringe itself. This is an A prime, got A prime. And notice that on his neck, he has a small jug with the Ak-Ab or Akbal symbol. And he's got an obvious syringe sticking out the front. Notice a tube sticking out. If you insert a tube, it can come out at any angle. And he's also vomiting. And if you look at the vase itself, he's vomiting blood. So again, the jug tied around his neck is not an enema jug, but I think it is somehow related to the enema scenes. And this jug is what's carried by, by the animal impersonators. Okay, thanks, Sinaida. She found these gourds. People are still using them. And also Norma found some others. So again, these gourds, you don't need to stick a handle on them, a tube. They have the tube. And notice they also have the hole, but they don't have a bladder inside. So the administration is slightly different. And they're not administering drugs. We saw that before. This is me as a joke. I couldn't find the right size for the award, the Ig Nobel Prize award, so I made them out of sweet potatoes. And I carved out the top. You can't make a sweet potato hollow, but you can carve it out to show how it was carved out. And I stuck the tubes in there. This is a joke. Here's a plate. He's got a tube stuck up. Notice the center has the hollow part. There's one jug upside down behind him. Another jug, he's almost like he's sitting on it. Notice that jug has a lid. And notice under the jug and floating at both sides are kind of hieroglyphic symbols or affixes. We need to study what those things are. Here's a guy at the left. He's holding, I'm estimating it's probably a syringe, but see, these could be rattles. You have to be really careful. You have to see what else is going on in that scene. So don't automatically assume every one of these is a syringe. Some are and some are not. This vase has been published over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It shows the enema jugs up front. It shows the syringes on top of it. It shows the women that are present. And in the middle lower, it shows the guy putting, we assume, lipstick. He's got that mirror being held in front of him, and he's got something in his hand. So we're going to go talk about that in a minute. So here again, these parading guys with the shibalba. So again, there's a lot, these parading scenes need to be restudied. Animal impersonators, yes, way, that's fine. Wayab, however you, pardon my lack of ability to pronounce it. And by the way, the things in front of the guy's head and the other one on the backpack, those of course are conch shells, those are musical instruments. But the jaguar in the middle has a jug, enema jug with the enema stuff sticking out. He has an enema syringe, a little bit different, hanging from his front. He's eating something. So there's a lot going on. See, here's a close-up. So the question is, notice the painting on his backpack. It's not a mechapol, it's not going around his forehead. And you've got those almost sharp things coming out the top, and a lot of them, there are almost a dozen of those things. And what is he applying lipstick or is he eating that? And again, you have, now see here, I think that is a musical instrument he's holding. I don't think that that's a syringe. The globular part isn't big enough and the handle's a little bit too long, but this is a vase we saw before that has lots of the things coming out. So here's a scene again at the left. Those are musical instruments. Those are not syringes. But notice that kind of the guy in the middle seems to be sniffing something, and the other two people have small cups in their hand. And there's the enema jug in front of the main guy, and he also is sniffing stuff. So again, when we study the enema, it's more than the syringe, it's more than the jug, it's what else is going on. There are a lot of chemicals involved, a lot of steps and so on that we have to study. This scene, of course, is well known. I think the syringe is a little bit exaggerated, because if they stick something this big in you, first of all, I don't want to get into that aspect. This would tear your tailpipe. I mean, there's no way that's going to go in your tailpipe, especially if it's solid. And that's something else we need to study. I've suggested they had to have a lubricant, and I've also suggested you need a shoehorn to get it in there. And I went to one museum, and they found the actual shoehorns. It's just like a shoehorn. And you probably had a lubricant on that and a lubricant on the thing. But again, I've never tried this type of thing. And obviously, as a medical patient over 77 years, obviously I've had to take enemas for needed uses, but I don't do it myself, and I don't stick calabash in my tail end. So again, here he's holding the syringe. Very clearly, you see at the top part, you see the part of the gourd that's kind of sticks out. We're trying to find the seeds of these gourds so we can plant them and grow them and make them available to people. And there's the round part in the middle of that thing, and that's the tube sticking out the front. And again, this is one of those same scenes. We've seen this before. It has the two different sizes. Then this vase, I'm estimating part of this is repainted, but this gourd is rather large. And gourds do come this way. You can buy gourds like this in the market. So again, it's not, there were thousands of Maya. We talk about Tikal, Copan, Palenque, a couple of dozen. There were thousands of Maya towns and settlements, and each had different gourds. Some were in the highlands, some were in the lowlands. They're not all using exactly the same thing. On the right side, what's in his hand, I don't think that's a syringe, for example. Could be, but I think it's an obsidian knife. But see, again, that needs to be studied. You can't just, I'm estimating it may be a knife, because that with a black headdress, that may be a prime, just a guess. And he's got the strap thing in his hand, which we now realize is animal related, but I don't think that's a syringe in his other hand. And here we have what's behind Jim Reed. He looks happy. Jim looks happy too. And you see the hole in the thing. Now, he's just sticking it, but you normally would have to stick your hand in that hole to kind of push the stuff out. But they seem very happy. And here is another guy. Again, these gourds come in different sizes and shapes. It depends, maybe there's different options for what's in it. Maybe there's different amounts you want in there. Maybe it's different ways you want to just have it, come in with blurb, blurb, blurb. You want you want 2 liters in there at once. And then we also have to look at the headdress on the top thing. Each of these jaguars has a headdress, but I don't think those are enema syringes sticking out the headdress, but if they are, that's pretty incredible. Now notice, each of these jaguars at the top has a very small enema jug in front, and they're each holding a little jar. So again, there's a lot of aspects that need to be studied. Here's a close-up. I estimate this is probably repainted, but and here you have at the top you have a guy again with another fairly large one. Then at the bottom we're gonna go to see that in a close-up later on. Now here's an authentic scene, and he seems to have, well, it's a good question. Oh yeah, there's one of the small jugs in that scene. Now here more of the gourds, by the way. Norma and Byron, Sinida went to one village and Norman and Byron went to another. They found them. I mean, they're all over the place. You know, we think we're studying the Maya umpteen thousand years ago. They're still taking them today, but no drugs, no alcohol, and there's no nothing, no bladder inside it. So here we are. We've seen these before. And when you have a scene like this, you have to be really careful of, you know, what is that he's carrying? I mean, is this a monkey eating a cacao pod? Is he sucking it out of a syringe? You know, we don't know what all these things are. We do have to be careful when we identify these things, because that's not really the shape of a cacao pod. It's not really the shape of an enema thing. It's a little bit hard to see. Now here again, this is the whole scene. You see here again, you have a monkey smoking something. The guy in front is smoking something as well. These are the guys wearing the red scarves, and there's that jug again. So he's drinking cups. Okay, we saw this before, but this is a close-up. What are in these drinking cups? Are these ingredients they're going to pour into the jug? Or is this something that you gargle in your mouth and then you drink something else? You see, there's a lot, you know, a lot of chemical aspects. Maybe you drink one substance and that prepares your mouth for another substance, and then you take it up the tailpipe. And again, those things sticking out, the decoration in their headdress, you know, are these syringes? I don't think so. But why do they have that? You know, are these flowers or buds? There's just so much that we have to study. And again, we've talked about these cups. Here's, I guess maybe a god D or something. Got a cup in his hand. So those cups are an essential part. Here again, the jaguar has the bib on, has a cup. The woman has another cup. Notice here that the enema jug does have a lid, and notice it also does have the base. Although in this case, it's not kind of, shall we say, glued on. So when we talk about enema jugs, some of them had lids and may have had a separate flat lid in there to put stuff on top, like a tray, but then how are the volutes come? But maybe you have to take it out and then put the stuff in. So what we need to do is study the whole sequence. And also to identify an Enemas ceremony, we have to learn what it takes besides the jug and besides the syringe. So for example, these drinking cups, I would vote that this is a prelude to an enema ceremony, that those cups are enough for me. Because notice their headdress is not quite the same as the others, but I think this is a prelude. And here again, this is one of those plates, and he has a drinking cup. And again, this is that scene that Justin Kerr photographed. And here again, now these are the what so-called lipstick containers. There's your enema jug, and notice this lipstick container is sitting on top. You know, how is that possible? Is there a flat rim around it? Maybe that's it, you see. Maybe it curls out, and there's enough space on that part of the ceramic to sit things. So again, at the top left, there's an enema syringe and a lipstick container. And on the bottom right, there's the lipstick container. And at the left, there's a lipstick container in the guy's hand, and he's putting it on his lips, you see. And in the other vase, you know, is that another type of a lip? You know, there's a huge amount we have to do. Okay, vomiting is frequent before taking the enema. Here the guy is vomiting. This is our drawing by one of our illustrators back in the 70s or 80s. got the jaguar with an enema jug. You've got the guy in front with the enema bib. And notice there's that human face. We talked about that before. That's a human being inside that jaguar outfit. Here's the A prime. We saw the drawing of this before. This is the actual vase. And you can tell he's, whether that's blood coming out, that we don't know. Again, we need, notice he's got the syringe in one hand and he's got that akbal jug hanging from his necklace. So we need medical doctors. We need ethnopharmacologists. It's not just one person can answer all these questions. You really need a good medical person to what causes this red material to come out. Here's the drawing of that. It's been published. This is not our drawing. It's been published several times. Here again, vomiting. And notice that bib. This is why I called it an enema bib, but that concept was not accepted because people said, well, there are lots of vomit scenes where they're not wearing a bib, and there are lots of scenes where they're wearing a bib, but there's no vomiting. So I just call it a bib or a scarf. It's hard to really say what they are. Again, a lot more studies are needed. Here, both these guys seem to be vomiting, and they've got the enema jugs in front of them. So again, is this a bib or a wide necklace? This is a snake that's got the same thing, and it's usually made of segments. Are these, what kind of segments are they? We really don't know. Here it is. Is it made out of cloth? We really need to study that. Here is again, we've seen this. Notice that these guys also have, here it's more like a necklace. So again, we have to be careful. And here we have something similar worn by warriors who have nothing to do with an enema ceremony. And they're wearing these like wide necklaces, but notice it's in segments. It's very, very similar. And notice this guy on a this is one of our drawings of the flower team back in the 70s and 80s. This is a plate that shows a monkey character, and he's got this thing tied around him. Again, is it a bib? Is it a necklace? What is the best thing to call it? And notice it is overlapping segments. And again, you have these overlapping segments. So we have to define if it's a warrior, maybe it's made out of one thing. See here, looks like it's made out of jade beads. We have to be a little bit careful. This is the actual plate itself. Then here, we've showed this before, that some of them are, the guys are holding these bibs. They seem to be in layers. I would estimate these are all out of cloth. And here you see, hard to tell what these really are, but they're kind of segments there. And then this is the scene. This is the bib scene. Look at the guy sitting in his ritual hut with his lady friend behind him. He's got one on him. The enema jug itself has one of these bibs around it. So again, they may be worn when there's no enema scene going on, but why are they wrapping it around the enema jug with all that stuff coming out the top? So I think calling these enema bibs is okay. We just have to be careful. There may be 4 or 5 different types of bibs, and some are enemas and some are for military scenes and all that. But this vase is needed to be found in a higher resolution and study. So again, a master's thesis or a PhD just on bibs. That's very, very, very important. And again, here are more of these scenes. There's a whole bunch. I'm going to go through these. It's kind of late. I'm going to go through these very quickly. There's here 4 different vases. We've got rollouts of a lot of them. And again, they show usually elderly man with a woman behind. There's kind of like a god N with his conch shell. Here's another one. Here, 2 more different ones. Okay, now let's get into the reality. I don't want to show too many of these disgusting, revolting things. These are, I'm estimating these are early classic, and I'm estimating they're from the Yucatan Peninsula, but I'm not positive of that. And there are a whole bunch of them. There are many, 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 many. These are published by Justin Kerr. I've photographed a lot of these as well. So, but notice that in these scenes, in the early classic scene, there's no wide ceremony shown. It's just one guy sticking it in there. Whereas in the late classic, you get this, okay? So again, enema rituals were not merely isolated events. They were not just for an individual in the early classic, perhaps, but in the late classic. So this vase of 31 gods shows that enema rituals were a major component of Maya rituals. There's a lot going on in the scene. It's not just, there's only one guy holding an enema syringe. There's a lot more going on. And if you take every individual, every deity, every animal in this scene, and figure out what their role is in Maya mythology, you've got an entire, Popol Vuh. You've got 31 chapters here because, dozens of things are going on. And lots of these guys have bibs, you see, that while the guy in front of the enema syringe over on the second row left, he's got the bib on, and it's the enema syringe in front of him. So again, as I close off, this is a painting that got everything started. Michael Coe really helped. This is a huge, huge help to see all this stuff. But lots more needs to be studied and identified. What's sticking out, what's in that other thing? Is that just something else? Are those, tamales for something else? Now related to the enema, what's he sniffing there? For suggested reading, I don't have a bibliography because we've already published our bibliography, but there's a lot of stuff. Obviously, Peter De Smet is very important. He did his doctorate, and then later on, he and a co-author did 2 more volumes. There's a lot to get from them. Plus, the one thing that I learned is vase after vase, bowl after bowl, scene after scene, enema jugs, enema syringes. It's not just 3, 4, 5, or 6. It's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of these scenes. Here's one. There's the jug. It's got the rope around it for carrying it. Got the stuff coming out of the top. It's got the cup. Each one of these guys is holding a syringe, very happy. We all go into the palaces. I was an architectural student at Harvard. I was interested in the corbel vault aspect, the architecture. I worked at Tikal for 12 months in 1965. I was interested in the architecture. And, we assumed, we never thought that, is this what really went on in there? And the other thing we have to study is we need better photography. We need detailed photography. We need to find software. Obviously, each scene with each color needs, shall we say, a slightly different type of software to make it better. I just put, 14 seconds to make this syringe stand out a little bit. Notice it's got at the left end or the bottom end, depending which view, that's the natural part of the gourd, okay? And then in this case, it's probably a tube set in it, but some have it otherwise. Okay, I think that's my last slide. Again, my purpose tonight was to show the reality that there are a lot of things going on that we weren't aware of. I mean, in the 1960s, when I studied at Harvard and then at Brown University, and then for my PhD at the University of Graz in Austria, there's just so much going on. And this is only one ceremony. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on as well. So I think it would be very helpful to have, Peter De Smet and his colleagues would be helpful to have medical doctors. I mean, not just ethnopharmacologists, but doctors who study the tail end. Again, do you need a shoehorn to get it in? Do you need the lubricant? And go over all the different plants and figure out which were potentially available, go through the dictionaries, with Bowles and his family who know the Yucatec language. We need that for all, 25, however many Mayan languages. We need to find out what words are for enema clusters, what words there are for lipstick, all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. I hope I didn't gross you out too much. I'm interested in showing iconography. I'm interested in showing what happens when you spend month after month after month finding each one and putting them together, showing them to the world, and then don't give all the answers, because each individual from their background needs to study, and then we get better answers than just myself. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nicholas. That was really, really good, really informative. We do have a lot of comments and a few questions. One of them here recently from Carl Calloway is, FYI, they are medicinal properties to consuming massive amounts of alcohol in a short period. It kills intestinal worms and parasites.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Well, today, they're taken for either cleaning you out or other medicinal purposes. And that needs to be studied as well. You know, how many of us knew the Maya were still using syringes? Zero.
Yeah.
So
And
we need to go to those villages. We're not going to do it. An ethnographer needs to have a registered licensed project and go in and study what's in there, how do they do it, and all that type of stuff. So yes, some enemas are used for cleansing. Some enemas have all kinds of medical purposes. But I think in these ceremonies we're seeing, it's to get high. Happy and high.
especially in the classic period, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Carl earlier said, as a potter myself, we used to use fat coiled ropes to sit round pots on while
Yes, correct.
working clay, and thick fishing boat ropes work best.
Yes, yes. Although the fluffy aspect, I agree. That's how you usually do it. But again, that each aspect needs to be studied.
And then some of these comments came in as you were talking. So Mariana was saying the left vase has a Kawak sign on it.
Yeah, lots of jugs have some symbols and other jugs have other symbols. That needs to be made an inventory, a tabulation, and translated.
And Barb McLeod was with us. I'm not sure if she's still with us, but Barb, if you want to unmute and say anything.
Well, I'd be happy to. I'm not quite sure where to start, but you know that I did an extensive study. I did an extensive study of the Codex style vases and trying to determine what the leaf is that represents the snake lady's skirt. And there are scenes, of course, particularly in the snake lady sections, where she's conjuring a snake, and the snake is called Khan, drink snake, and the old god character is holding either an enema clyster or a cup. So it's clear that that whole thing, that conjuring ritual, is associated with psychotropics. And I've speculated. I've done my own botanical research, and found that Banisteriopsis muricata, which is a different form of ayahuasca. It grows in the Amazon, but it's also found in southern Mexico. I first found out about it from Dennis Breedlove, a well-known Maya ethnobotanist. This was at a dinner party at Bob Laughlin's house back in 1979. He just told me off the top that he had been experimenting with a Banisteriopsis plant that he had found on the west coast of Mexico. And of course, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I knew about Banisteriopsis in 1979, but I had not yet experimented with it myself. And I was fascinated, but he said that he had found that the inner bark contained DMT, and he took it as a snuff. And beyond that, one assumes that the MAOI properties are also in Muricata, the harmine and harmaline. So I think we're looking at what we could effectively call Mayahuasca, and they may well have been taking it as an enema, which would be, I think, a perfectly suitable way to get it into yourself, because drinking it is a rough thing just because it tastes so vile. And as far as, what the legitimate use of it is, I think it's absolutely clear that it's for accessing the other world, for stepping into primordial time, to having conversations with ancestors and deities. And I wouldn't have called it recreational at all. And so my own research suggests that it's a very serious part of ritual practice. And
could it be like facilitating them conjuring their way?
why? Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think it was probably a necessary way of kind of opening the door to that kind of conjuring. It certainly puts you in a receptive state where those beings, if they're interested in you, will
Right.
come and visit you. But you've got to be deserving of that visit too. It's not recreational. It's not casual at all.
Thank you very much. I hope the pictures I showed you help you go further in that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm fascinated. I definitely want to go back through the recorded version of this and study those images, and then
One by
I'd be
one.
happy to correspond with you about my work on the Snake Lady
Please.
vases, and there's a lot of good stuff in there that I think you'd be interested in.
Do you have my email, Jim? Can you give her my email?
Sure, I'll get you two together.
Yeah, Jim will be our liaison. That'd be great. Thank you.
Nicholas, I noticed that Mike Ruggieri talking. I noticed that a lot of these folks are vomiting even before they take the enema. So it looks to me like they've already taken psychoactive drugs.
Correct.
Even before they do the enema. So they're doing a double dose, apparently.
Yep. That's I believe that's correct. Yes.
I'm looking at a comment by Isabel, getting high, like in many cultures using psychoactives. Maybe she could speak up and say more, but I agree completely. We're talking about medicinal use. We're talking about ritual use, and it's very unlikely to have been casual use.
And how do you pronounce a God A Prime's name?
Akan? Akan.
Hatakan?
Well, that particular name that I'm not looking at it right now, but when Nicholas showed it, the stone in hand that was deciphered by Mark Zender as Hatz. Hatz means to strike. So it's Hatz Akan. It's the Akan who strikes. God A Prime who whacks you. So you can think about what that means.
And the well-known David Bowles was with us tonight. And so I asked him in a direct message if he was aware of any of the modern Maya. You mentioned that, or Nicholas, was it Carl or you that mentioned David being married to a Maya? And I asked him if there's any folks that he knows or they know there in the northern Yucatan who are involved with the modern ritual, not ritual, but use of enemas. And he says, not amongst the people I know, but I think that it is possible that in Quintana Roo, there could be things going on which don't happen in Northwest Yucatan.
Where we found it was in the highlands.
Right. And then Norman Conley makes an interesting point. He goes, might scrape the bottoms of enema jugs to get some chemistry, like they do with cacao. That would be some interesting research for somebody to do.
So how many enema jugs have been found archaeologically, and where? Where do they occur?
Oh.
Yeah, we need to get our colleagues to work on that.
The same Norman, I wonder if he could work on this, is used to intoxicate with alcohol used to administer drugs for both recreational and religious reasons and used for punishment. I'm not sure what. George's Ferry notices that the number 13 seems to be repeated in several images. And
Yeah, all those paintings on the jugs need to be put together and make a tabulation.
Mark Van Stone thinks the volutes from the jars may be metaphoric rather than literal elements.
Yeah, they may not be physically, you know, in that color coming out, but something's coming out of there.
So Barb, at that one image of the individual holding what Nicholas said was a knife, you said evil stick jaguar.
Oh, no, that was a different scene. It was
Oh.
a scene of a guy holding it looked like a pole with a jaguar wrapped around it. And
Exactly, yeah.
there's a text next to it that
Mhm.
names him as evil stick jaguar, like lobte or labte bahlam, or hish. I think it's labte hish is how it's written glyphically, meaning literally evil stick jaguar. This thing is like a sorcerer's wand for sending some kind of an attack creature upon your enemies. Dave Stewart first commented on that. I think it's the 2005 Maya Meetings workbook, which is the one on ceramics. That's where I first found out about it. I've been intrigued by it ever since.
And
because-
maybe when you and Nicholas get together, he could send you the image of that one, Nicholas, the one, it looks more like a reptilian type thing. You kept saying it's not an insect. I don't think it's an insect or a bee, but there was some glyph. There was a four glyphs to the lower right of him that Barb would like to get a
Okay.
better look at.
Yeah, I'd like to look at that. And of course, Nicholas, if you don't know about it, you really should. The paper by Luis Lopez, 2005 on fireflies. It's up on MesoWeb.
Right.
Excellent study of all of those flying creatures, especially in the Codex style Xibalba scenes.
Because in the fireflies, don't forget in the Popol Vuh, they stick those in their cigar.
Absolutely.
Plus, everybody, if you've been following the chat, Carl Calloway posted a link to that Firefly PDF by Luis Lopez.
Yeah.
And I've downloaded it myself while the program was going on, but it
Can you
is
send it to
available
me,
right
Jim?
in the chat.
Jim, can you send that to me?
Sure. Okay. And let's see, Isobal, she would be curious to know if L. violaceus has MOI properties similar to the ayahuasca vine. If that is the case, any admixtures added to the balche containing DMT or psilocybin would be more likely to cause purging.
Yeah, I don't know. Is she still here? I'd like to know what L. violaceus is. Was it a plant that was mentioned early on?
Lonchocarpus violaceus is balche, is the
Lonchocarpus. I see
yeah.
it's for Lonchocarpus, which is the balche
Yeah,
bark.
tree, yeah.
Well, I've drunk balche. I drunk enough to get drunk as a skunk, I'll say, with
Really?
lacandones. Oh yeah, I was with Roberto Bruce one summer when we overlapped at Naha for several weeks, and because Roberto was at that time so well known and very much a part of that community, I was able to get an invitation to join him outside the God House, where we sat around drinking balche for about 2 hours and smoking cigars, and I get pretty drunk, I will say that, but I did not experience anything that I would call psychedelic in that sense.
the older records. Some of the older records of balche mention admixtures. That in
Right.
addition to the honey and the balche, they would put roots and other things in it. So my curiosity is whether the balche itself has the same properties as the ayahuasca vine, which are MAO inhibitors, which would allow for the DMT in any substance that gets added to become psychoactive and to extend the experience of psilocybin or whatever else gets added to the balche.
Well, that's a great question. Someone may already know whether or not anyone's ever looked at, the alkaloids in Longicorpus. I would love to know myself. Certainly drinking it by itself doesn't have that effect, but I would welcome the idea of it having had admixtures in the classic, where they put all kinds of things in it, because God A Prime is in fact the god of pulque. And so I would think that they would have put other things in pulque as well. It wasn't just straight agave. It would have been a brew with all kinds of things in it, things that we don't know about now. And if the Maya are using them today, they're keeping it secret. Another thing that occurs to me is that Thomas Gage, whether or not he's credible or not, but the travels of Thomas Gage in whatever the 18th century, I can't even pin it down, in the New World, he in his many comments about his travels mentions that one of the places that he visited in Chiapas, the local people put toads into jars of alcoholic
Carl,
brew.
that's the one I talked about.
Yeah, and they left them in there for months and months and months, and then eventually drank them.
Bravo! Yes, I have Gage's notes. I haven't read that far. That is awesome.
That's the juiciest part.
The chocolate.
That
is fantastic.
Well, he described it as absolutely vile, and he said that people would go out in the street and just vomit their guts out, and that the local authorities forbade this. They didn't want people doing this, and apparently the local authorities found out about this particular pharmacy of toad brew and went in there and broke all of the jugs. So again, there's a bit of history or anecdote or however you want to look at it, but it involved toads, and that's not the only toad story I've heard.
Yeah, well, that's very synchronistic because Nicholas, Dr. Hellmuth was just talking about that, and he was trying to remember the source. So there we have it. It's Thomas Gage.
Yep, that's it. That's
one of them. There's another one. There's another one whose name I can't remember right now, but he's recently studied the Kekchi, and he's collected. So he studied Kekchi cave use, but he's collected Kekchi stories about cave use and about Kekchi gods who live in caves, and one of them does involve jars that are called darkness jars in Kekchi, in which toads were placed. So I can track that one down for you. I just don't remember it off the top who the author is, but this is a relatively recent study.
I think I do have that article, but I'll recheck. Yeah. We'll recheck.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got it. I just don't remember the guy's name.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, we got a response here from David. Zak, it's Z-A-C-L-A-L, Zaklal or Zakla.
Saklel, L-E-L, Saklel?
No, he's got L-A-L or L-A or white L-A-A-L. C-L-A-L, Zakla, species of nettles, in, I guess, the Motul dictionary. The liquor from the crushed steam plant is employed as an enema to relieve gas in the bowels.
Yeah, see, we need linguists for every language to do this.
And then David goes on, oh my gosh, 3 posts, very specific. Shunab Mukoi M12.2, literally turtle dove's shoe. Several possible species of Euphorbia hirtael, Euphorbia postata, Aiton, blah, blah, blah. The Maya texts prescribe a poultice of the crushed plant to stench blood. The juice is employed in an enema for diarrhea and chills. And he's also talking about the guayao. The juice of the raw crushed leaves is employed as an enema for flatulence, and the juice of the crushed fruit is taken for cramps and diarrhea. Interesting.
Yeah, again, we found that villages are just using enemas still today in villages in the Pocumchi, Kekchi area and in the Kekchi area, still using them today.
Right. So it's sort of like a homeopathic
Yes,
remedy for a lot of things. And I think I mentioned off Zoom that it could have been used, you know, to help with kings that were constipated.
Well, another source that could be dug into deeper is Roy's Ethnobotany of the Maya. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And I think that we need to have someone take a serious ethnobotanical pass or pharmacognosy pass. I remember just off the top finding the entry chelis ku, and after I pondered it a bit, I realized that the root of that is cheel, rainbow. Chelis ku was the name for datura
Ooh,
in Roy's Ethnobotany, and I thought, wow, that's worth remembering.
huh.
So I'm sharing that now, and there's just maybe a place to start. Wait.
I've got datura growing right outside my front doorstep. It's got beautiful double flower, purple flowers on it right now.
You
But
sent me some seeds, but I was going to plant them this spring. I'm not going to plant them
Right.
in the winter.
it looks like you're bundled up for the cold already this year. What?
Oh well, we're having a cold spell in Austin. It's a bit crazy. Normally in November we're still balmy, but it's been
Yeah.
down in the 40s straight on through night and day for the last week, and cold and rainy. So yeah, it's chilly.
Hey, Barb and Jim, I just thought I'd mention about Roy's Ethnobotany. One of the prime sources is El Libro de Judío, the Book of the Jew.
Oh
I
yeah.
wish I could get a copy of it. If anybody does have a copy, it should be made into a PDF. But it was an Italian, I think an Italian doctor who went during the 19th century he lived in the Yucatan and went around and made a list and collection of all the medicinal plants that were being used by the Yucatecos. It's called El Libro de Judío, the Book of the Jew. And if you can find a copy, it's pure ethnobotanic gold.
Well, do you think Peter Matthews might have it?
Peter might have it. I know that Jürgen Kramer has a copy of it, potentially. But it's still sold in Yucatan and if you can find it. But yeah, he was a Jewish Italian doctor, and
Dang.
he talks about, he gives you the
Yeah.
name of the plant, he gives you the description of the plant, but he doesn't tell you the preparation of the plant. But still, it's an extremely valuable source.
Hmm.
Well, Royce tells you something about the preparation. For a lot of the herbs that are
Yes,
this,
yes, he
he talks about how they are prepared to treat specific illnesses.
And then concerning datura, that grows in Mesoamerica, right?
Oh, sure. It's datura, and then also the other one, Brugmansia, which is the tree. Both of those are found.
Isn't Brugmansia the one that hangs down in Dr.
Yeah. It's like a tree. It's a small tree.
Yeah,
and the
we have them
flowers
growing
are-
in our garden, but I believe that the Brugmansia is not native.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know
Maybe
datura is native,
Exactly, you're correct.
and it's found all over both continents,
Yeah.
north and south. in
And I
tropical
know
areas.
that the Bolivian shamans or Indians, whatever, they say that smoking the leaves or boiling the flowers makes you crazy. And what they would do would take about a 3-inch piece, just like Boucher. Sometimes they use a 3-inch piece of the bark of the tree. Well, with the datura, they use they boil a 3-inch piece of the root. And you avoid a lot of the properties that are in the leaves and flowers.
Mhm.
So
I
Bob,
have
what do you
a,
think those things are sticking out all the jugs? All those sometimes pointed things, sometimes rounded?
Well, I've
And-
always assumed there's some kind of herb, some kind of plant. And it's maybe not physically accurate that those plants are sitting on top of an open jug. I think it's there as an icon to
As a
tell you
symbol.
about the contents.
Yeah, that could be true.
And some of them, to me, I mean, they look like the way the Maya would stylize turkey feathers. So couldn't you also use a turkey feather to stir what's in the jug?
Symbolically.
well,
Well, I mean,
Callaway, could you say the name of that book of the Jew again?
it's El Libro del Judío.
El
He's muted.
Libro
It's the Spanish book of the Jew.
Judío, okay.
Judío, Judi accent O, Judío.
J-U what?
Judio with an accent mark on the I.
I see.
Judío.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
did find Gage's reference of the toads in Gage's
Oh.
book.
Oh, you want to read it to us?
Sure, let's see.
Oh, it's delectable.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me
Yummy
find,
for the tummy.
where the beginning of it is. Among themselves, they use to make such drinks as are in operation far stronger than wine, and these they confection in such great jars as come from Spain, wherein they put some little quantity of water and fill up the jar with some molasses or juice of the sugar cane or some honey for to sweeten it. Then for strengthening it, they put in roots of leaves of tobacco, which other kinds of roots they grow, and they know to be strong in operation. They have in some places I've known where they put in a live toad and so closed up the jar for a fortnight or a month's space till all that they have put in him be thoroughly steeped and the toad consumed. I'm sorry, it's old letters, so
Right. Yeah.
consumed, and the drink well strengthened. Then they open it and call their friends to the drinking of it, which commonly they do in the nighttime, lest their priest in the town should have notice of them in the day, which they never leave off until they be mad and raging drunk. This drink they call chicha, which stinketh most filthily, and certainly is the cause of many Indians' death, especially where they use the toad's poison with it. Once I was informed living in, I don't know the one letter of this, it's Micheo, maybe? I can't, or Mishko, I don't know which. I couldn't.
Mishko, I think it might be Mishko.
Yeah.
Okay, of a great meeting that was appointed in an Indian's house, and I took with me the officers of justice of the town to search that Indian's house, where I found 4 jars of chicha not yet opened. I caused them to be taken out and broken in the street before his door, and the filthy chicha to be poured out, which left such a stinking scent in my nostrils that with the smell of it or apprehension of its loathsomeness, I fell to vomiting and continued sick almost a whole week thereafter.
Wow.
Oh man,
Yeah.
he ratted them out.
Well, but
Yeah, he
um,
ratted them out, the son of a bitch.
Yeah.
well,
No, good.
but did not some of the vases that Dr. Hellmuth showed have the chi have the chi written on the vase for cheech.
It does, right, for
Yeah,
chi,
so there you have
yeah.
a direct correlation between
Yeah,
the name of
yeah.
the drink and the name
And chicha,
hieroglyphic
yeah,
tag on the vessel.
yeah.
Well, the chi
right.
would be the it would be the carrier solution into which they put all of the, eye of Newton, wing of bat, and all the other things. but yeah, they might have just called it chi, or
Yeah,
pulque.
they called it chi, but then it with all the additives. There's your direct corollary between the ethnography as recorded by Gage and the vases that were just shown. That's pretty cool.
There's so much more to come out. And again, if we study every vase and look at it in Adobe Photoshop or other software, so we can read it a little bit better and be careful about the repainted ones, I think we're going to make great discoveries, because there's so much we need to get deeper into the Maya. We need to learn more about what really happened in every aspect of their life.
All right. Another thing about the toads, that's the Bufus marinus with the glands on the back. And these are depicted in stone at Izapa.
And Quiriguá.
Yeah,
What's
Quiriguá.
interesting is that this big old toad with this symbolic 3 little dots on his shoulder, that's the gland. But anyway, his tongue is sticking out, and he's got a little guy sitting in a canoe on his tongue. So I call it the canoe traveler.
Where does he have a canoe on his tongue?
Izapa.
And he has the frog has a canoe on his tongue.
Yeah, he's got a tongue sticking out.
Oh, I have to see
No.
that.
Send us a photo of that monument.
Oh, all right.
Please.
All right.
Yeah, there are about
Wow.
three monuments that have and altars that have the toad there at Izapa.
He's taken for a ride, literally. A canoe
Yeah,
ride.
it's,
A canoe ride.
of Viajando, that little canoe traveler.
Yeah,
In the
you should
underworld.
put that canoe,
We
thing
want to see. We
in
want to
one
see
of the
now.
things you send out, in one of the IMSs, so everyone can see it.
Just
But
put that on the
anyway-
front cover. Yeah, put that on the front cover of the Aztlander.
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen it myself a few times at the site.
Wow.
Let's see. CAR is saying the Museo Popol Vuh has another altar of a toad.
Flat one. Yeah, the flat one.
But where I saw, I mean, we have them in South Florida, and I don't like to let my cat out because, especially they're troublesome to dogs and cats who chase them and bite them. Many cases of dogs dying, but I was with a group and 13 Maya elders, and we were doing ceremony, and we did a ceremony in Zapa, also Tacalicabak, and on the shores of Lake Atitlan near Santiago. But as we approached the lake, we had to walk through this the most beautiful corn field I've ever seen. The stalks were at least 15 feet high. It was like walking through a cathedral of corn. But any low wet spot in this cornfield, because it was kind of little streams or little water, so they could water the corn, would grow through it. But any place that was really low and wet were giant Bufus toads, and they would be grouped like 4, 5, 6 of them in one little hot spot. They were just giant. So it just makes me know that just like the Amanita muscara mushrooms or the psilocybin around Palenque or the Bufus toads, they were all in the area of where, like, the Popol Vuh was written. You know, it's stuff that goes back thousands of years.
The psilocybin mushrooms at Palenque are not native.
Yeah, correct.
Really?
The ones
Yeah,
that
no, they're not
are,
native,
the ones
you're
that
correct.
are in the highlands. That's where all the mushroom stones are.
Yeah, Barbie, you're correct.
Yeah.
By the way, when you go to the hotel in Yasha, the El Sombrero Hotel, and you're having dinner, those toads are hopping through the restaurant, eating the insects. And also several times when I've gone to very remote areas, walking kilometer after kilometer deep into the jungle to local Maya houses, every house allows the toads to live in the corner of the house and come out at night and eat the insects. So they're actually kept as pets. I mean, not
Right.
to have sleeping in your bed and petting them, but they do allow these toads are, in a sense, not domesticated, but they are permitted and allowed inside the houses because they eat the insects.
And for
Yeah.
those of you who are familiar with Burning Man, at the Temple of the Toad in Burning Man, they are administering the psychedelic there from the Bufos's northern cousin from Sonora. So and it's being consumed by half of Silicon Valley. So we come out to Burning Man for the festivities. So yeah, it's being used in modern practice as well.
Yeah, it's 5-MeO-DMT.
5-MeO-DMT. Yep.
Right.
I've never
Sonora.
tried it, but I've read that it's not a terribly good idea to try it.
Well, you'll be blasted off the planet and out into the depths of the cosmos. I have not tried it. I've not had an opportunity presented to me. I'm not sure what I would do if I did. In my youth, I would have tried it because I did other things that were like that. But I don't know. I'd be worried that I'd have a heart attack and not come back again.
Yeah. Me too.
But I don't know what would happen if someone actually came up to me and said, "Hey, you want to try a toad?"
Well, they're all over the Petén. They're all over many parts of Guatemala.
Well, this is the Bufo alvarius. It's a northern toad.
Yeah,
it's
right.
a desert
There are
toad.
two species in Petén.
And
Yeah.
and there's a very specific way of collecting the venom. You have to collect it as a sticky substance and then dry it. Well, there's a vase. You probably know it. I think it was published by Peter De Smet, showing a Maya guy collecting toad venom from the back of a toad. Do you know the one? You know the vase I mean?
Ooh. Well,
Nicholas, you must know that. You must know it. If not, I'll be happy to send it to you.
Yeah, please send it to me.
I
Yeah,
can't get my hands on it right this minute, but I've looked at it recently.
Or
And the
it was in your previous presentation, on one of your presentations.
I've mentioned
Yeah.
it before, but now's the time to really kind of get into that because the Maya clearly knew about toads, but they didn't throw them, as far as I knew, into just vats of pulque. They actually knew how to collect the poison. It's like
Right.
they're using a little stylus to collect the poison off the back of the toad, and the text says basically that's what he's doing. It said that lab tupat winik, I think is how they say it. Lab tupat winik, the bad stuff or the poison on the back of the winik, and the winik is the same word as for man, but they
Right.
use it for the toad,
Huh.
which
Bob,
is
please send that
very
to me.
interesting. Oh yeah, happy to send it. But anyway, Peter Smet is the one that tracked that one down,
Okay.
and
Oh,
so
wow. That vase was from one of your photographs that you shot ages ago. It's a Mochul vase. And some people said the guy is putting makeup on the toad. Others have said they're
no way.
scraping. But it's funny, the comments on it. But I do know the piece. It's unrepainted. It's funny.
Well, no, it's authentic, and I think I understand the text pretty well. Yeah, they're
So,
collecting toad venom. They're doing it very much like the guys now that work with the Sonoran desert toad.
mhm. So Barb, when I send you and Carl the Izapa toad, maybe you can send me that one from Peter.
Happy to, sure. I mean, I can find it pretty quickly, but I can't do it while we're doing this.
Yeah, no, I would like it in my email.
Yeah, that can be arranged.
And then for anybody, the lady that was interested in El Libro de Judío, David Bowles has posted a complete citation in the chat at the end.
Oh,
If anybody
Oh,
wants any of
fantastic.
that information.
You know, it should be copyright free.
Oh, where
the
is
booklet.
this? What?
Look at the
Okay.
end of the chat, the last message. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. That's a direct message to me.
oh no,
Um,
you'll have to share it.
I'm gonna
Yes.
copy it and share it to everybody.
Just send it in the email if you can, you know, or however well, or put it in the chat.
There's not a link in it, but it is a complete citation.
Oh,
Or
and
the IMS.
is it in his materials up on the internet? On FAMSI, I think all his materials are there. Let's see.
No, it's from
Yeah, it's in the chat now.
Dorothy Andrews.
That's
Zapata.
publication information. Okay.
Lopez. Let's see.
Medicina doméstica, el libro de estudio. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Dorothy Andrews, Heath de Zapata.
I can't copy it for some reason. Oh darn! Don't get rid of the chat yet. I'm working on it. I'm having trouble copying it.
I'm gonna
It's
go
I always
click and-
have
click and
trouble with
drag.
these things. I hate this. Okay,
I'm gonna paste it into an email and send it to myself, and I'll
yeah.
be happy
Yeah.
to send it to you too, Randa.
Thank you.
Let me get done sending it to myself first. Oh, wait, come on. Oh, here it is. I got it. Okay, Medicina Domestica.
And then David's now sharing. Why is he doing it just to me? I'll share this with everybody. My cat is hungry.
Mhm.
And
The cat
there's
wants the
David's
code word.
website where he has so much information. It's unbelievable how much he has on that website.
Oh, yeah, totally. I'd be happy to ratify that. Let's see.
And I have his son Edward's working on, I suggested that he work on a video documentary of like the life of William Follen. I feel like his passing went by kind of unnoticed, and
Yeah, it's really sad when he passed away.
yeah.
Because we worked at Santa Rosa Ixtampac through him
Oh, really?
in 1899. Wait, no, 1990. In 1980.
You've been around a long time, Nicholas.
That's what happens when you have toad juice. You forget reality.
You live forever.
In 1989, we worked at Santa Rosa Ixtampac.
All right, well, I don't see any more questions. We've successfully gone past 2 hours, so thank you all for hanging in here. We are slowly losing our audience. I know Jimena in Chile, she was about a little while ago, she was like, it's after 11 down here, I gotta go, bye.
Well, you're recording it and you're gonna put it up in
Right,
the next few days. That'll be nice.
yeah, as long as you're in my Aztlander list, you'll get the notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the
Oh,
opportunity.
sorry, I
because
get
It's very
confused
important to get
between
this
IMS and
information out.
Aztlander, so sorry about that.
Just have to get them both.
Yeah, I do get them both. That's why I get confused as to which is which.
Well, the Aztlander Zooms are usually on a Monday night, and I don't like to get them too close to the IMSs on the 3rd and 4th Wednesday, because that is just too much for me. But next year, the IMS is only going to have one presentation a month, so I can, Nicholas, start putting Aztlander posts in the middle of the week, like on a Wednesday when they're not doing one, I can do one. So, but I usually find that Monday night is like people are over the weekend, they want to get into a routine, they want to find something to do, and Monday night is a good night. But all right, folks, I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks for showing up. But first, let me announce Carl Calloway, who's been with us here tonight and making many comments in the chat and vocally. He's our Zoom presenter next month. He mentioned December 10th, but I think I have here December 12th.
Okay, it'll be the 12th.
Monday
What?
night, December 12th. And his program is A Resplendent Tree Hiding in the Forest, the Maya Cross at Palenque. So that'll be, he's been working a lot with the jade. Wait till you see the cover of the December Aztlander. It's beautiful.
Teaser alert, teaser alert.
Gold. I make the jade a gold color, and then I use the gold color as the accent color throughout the issue. It's really something. So look forward to the December issue, and look forward to Carl's presentation. It'll be your Christmas holiday present on December 12th.
Yes, very appropriate for the holidays. We'll be talking about resplendent, shiny, blingy trees.
All right. Okay, thanks everybody for attending. Thank you, Barb. Thank you for everybody who's made comments. And we'll see you again in
Ooh, we just got something from David. Lai uchun besiku hok o lubok nikte. Tu ni utial utziboltik chuplan. Thus the odor of plumeria flowers begins to come out of his nose, so that he desires women.
Wow.
I'm gonna grab that. Right
Yeah, I'm grabbing that too.
now.
I'm gonna try one of the flowers outside my front door now. Geez.
Well, this is plumeria. I grow plumeria.
Plumeria is one. It actually is also imported. That's what the Hawaiians make their leis out of.
Correct.
I think what Nicholas, you were saying you found the white plumeria.
Yeah, the white one is native and it grows mainly in Bosque Seco desert areas. The colored ones are also native, but they're only found in gardens. And J. Eric S. Thompson was completely incorrect. And all the people that quoted him, like Montgomery, the great epigrapher, unfortunately, it's not the symbol for the keen sunglyph. The symbol for the keen sunglyph is a four-petaled flower. I have a separate lecture on that.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
And Barb, can you say that again?
Oh, I gotta get back to it again. Let's see if I can.
Why is
Lai
it backwards?
lai uchun besik uhok ol ubok nikte tuni utial utziboltik chuplan. And he's translated it. Looks pretty good to me. Thus the odor of plumeria flowers begins to come out of his nose, so that he desires women.
Huh. And then that backwards C, I'm not used to seeing that. Is that Yucatec or what is?
Yeah, that's one of the orthographies that's used. It was used in the colonial period for that ts sound. Tsib. In this case, tsibol, tik, tsi. Tsib. It's like in the word tsib that means writing. It's a glottalized ts. That's the symbol for that sound.
And I'm not totally sure, but I think the Nicte is the white version.
It is the plumeria, right?
Yeah.
Bok is fragrance. Ubok nikte is the fragrance of the plumeria.
Huh.
And tuni from his nose, uti al, so that utziboltik chuplan, so that he desires women.
Huh. Wow. Well, thank you for that.
Well, thank you, David, for that. Cool. Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nicholas.
Hope you enjoyed all the material I provided.
Take
Very
care,
much.
Donald,
Yeah.
Barb, Carl.
Very much. I want to wallow in it
Rhonda.
now. I want to see it
Help
some
me,
more.
Rhonda.
Thanks a million, everyone.
Yeah. Good night.
All right. Take care. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can access Dr. Hellmuth's website at www.myarchaeology.org. To subscribe to monthly issues of the Aztlander e-magazine, contact your host Jim Reed at mayaman@bellsouth.net. Thanks for taking the time to view this video. Take care.